How will this work its way through into policy? You're already beginning to see in the UK, a museum in East Anglia talking about one of its, policy objectives being the creation of well-being. Is this something that we're going to see in terms of the policies of publicly funded organisations in the UK?
I think it is, but we have to wait and see what those organisations make of it, in a sense. We are running our programme aware that there is a strong policy appetite for this, not just with the Prime Minister. The Cabinet Office coordinates policy and strategy across government, is keen to point out that the well-being lens is one that policymakers should adopt. And maybe it's about giving people the tools which up to now we haven't really had, because actually the aim of the Treasury, I noticed the other day, has for many years been around the well-being of the UK, but they've been solely focusing on the economic well-being for many years. But in a sense, the language is there. We now need to provide people with tools and with good descriptive material that they can then build on. And I think the success of our programme actually crucially depends on that, because during the national debate, people did tell us that they're very interested in what we're doing, they support what we're doing, but only if it leads to a change in the way that government, business, individuals all start to think about how we value our own lives and how we value progress as we define it.
But in that national debate, when they said would it lead to changes, what sorts of things do they have in mind?
Well, I think it is moving away just from the bottom line. So what would there be any different decisions if we think about things in well-being terms than purely financial terms? Now, we're hearing of all sorts of examples that policymakers are talking on, and any one, I think, always sounds, well, far from earth-shattering, but I think added up, they will all make a change. So let me give just one example. Would be, it's said that it doesn't matter where you plant trees. The important thing is to plant them to actually get more carbon back into the to recycle carbon and to have a strong environmental impact. But actually, if you were to plant trees in places where people could see them, there actually is a positive well-being effect there. That people value urban landscapes being broken up with trees, with green spaces. So, and the choice of planting them in the middle of nowhere where nobody could see them, and in a city centre park, why not go for the city centre park? The costs would be more or less the same. Yeah. But the well-being effect would be larger.
Give me another example, perhaps not so much an environmental example, but one that related maybe to emotional happiness, if it's possible.
We've certainly been talking with people who are thinking about life in rural communities and the value of things like post offices and pubs in rural places. That they provide more than just they are at the heart of it an economic service, but they provide more than that in terms of
a social community.
A social community, a place for people to meet, and people get benefit from having those things in the community.
What would you say to the cynics who would observe that this is probably the worst economic downturn for some several decades, and we find ourselves talking about well-being, and there's always a kind of suspicion, I suspect, that somehow this is a shuffling of the cards and a way simply of avoiding the difficult choices that might be contained within public expenditure on different types of activity. What would you say to those people?
I'd say that it's interesting that the debate is going on now, as well as people concentrating on getting out of recession and managing public spending. I think I'd also say the debate has been going on for some time, and it's now reached a bit of a crescendo. So maybe this is the time to think about what kind of world do we want to live in, what kind of values do we have, what is important for our well-being as we design the economy going forward, rather than necessarily bringing back in the economic growth as the only model.
But also, too, presumably that there might be better public spending rather than simply more public spending.
Exactly that. If we're judging the impact of public spending not only by a financial return, which is obviously important given it's public money, but also that it has a social return on that investment, then that is getting more for the same amount of limited resources.
Just lastly, Paul, when can we look forward to seeing some results that will give us some idea what it all means?
Absolutely. Concentrating on our individual wellbeing measures, on the 1st of December 2011 we're putting out our very first experimental results so that people can see the kind of things we're working with and get a feel for that. Those results are only based on a relatively small sample, and so our main initial publication will be in the summer of 2012, July 2012. We are aiming to put out some part-year results between now and summer 2012, again, so people can see the kind of results as they're coming out. We don't want to, instead, divert from the first full set of annual results because we think that would be a very rich set of results to look at. On the other hand, we do want to make sure that people understand the kind of results we're putting out and that we've got some feedback on some early presentations.
Paul, thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you.